Welcome to the Second Half Stewardship podcast. We believe that God owns it all, and our response as Christians is to live generous lives. I'm Spencer Hall, a certified financial planner.
And I am Austin McLaughlin. As former full-time missionaries in the United States and overseas, Spencer and I approach managing our personal finances through the lens of biblical stewardship.
Journey with us as we explore how to be generous stewards of our money, time, relationships, gifts, and experiences.
Well, welcome back to the Second Half Stewardship. We're really glad that you're here. We are picking back up with a conversation that we had with Peter Greer, starting with his organization, Hope International, and just overviewing Hope. Today, we're going to talk a little bit more about prayer. So if you want to learn more about Hope, you can watch our last episode. But Peter, you recently wrote a book called Lead with Prayer. And really, it was foundational and formational for Spencer and I as we read it over the last couple of months. It's been incredibly impactful, the research that y'all did. So we would love to just start off and hear from you. What made you want to write a book about prayer? What were some of those striking things that drove you to write this book?
Austin, just to be clear, I did not want to write this book. And Ryan Skoog reached out and said, let's write a book on the prayer lives of world-changing leaders. My response was, Ryan, that sounds amazing. I can't wait to read your book. But I'm out on that. And part of the reason for that is when I look at my own prayer life, there was a gap between what I said and what I did. I would say that prayer mattered, but I have a really hard time quieting my soul, getting my internal RPMs down to a place that there is this deep sense of prayer. And so my response to Ryan was, I am the wrong person on that. But I am so grateful. I actually did something crazy the next morning, spent some time praying about this. And the overwhelming sense was, don't miss the journey, Peter. And I am so grateful. It truly has been the most transformational. I've never had anything that comes close to the impact on my prayer life. There has nothing like this exercise of let's listen, let's learn from the global church about what it looks like to be intentional in prayer. And then let's do something crazy. Let's try it. Let's put it into practice. So that has been the journey, and it has been so good. And I am so grateful for Ryan, his invitation, and then Cameron and Jill joining in. So there were 4 of us working on this project together and really saying, let's learn from the global church. Let's learn from these leaders. And then as a group of 4, we wrote the book in community, and we put these tools into practice into community. And again, there is far less of a gap today than there was a couple of years ago between what I said and what I did when it comes to prayer. So I really appreciate the words on the journey you guys have been on too. But I think all 4 of us that worked on this would say it has had a transformational impact on our prayer lives.
Yeah. So with that, I would love to know from the research that y'all did, you interviewed prayer leaders. You read stories about praying leaders that have already passed and are with the Lord now. What were some of the most striking things that stood out to you?
So we thought it would be a good idea to start with Jesus. And did you know the prayer life of Jesus is unbelievable on that? And you might look and say, Jesus, you got 3 years, you got limited time, you got to really hustle. And what do we see about the life of Jesus? He not sometimes, but often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. And we also see in the decision-making before Jesus appointed the 12, you know what he did? He spent the night in prayer. You know what Jesus decided to do the night before he went to the cross? He knew what was about to happen. He said, there's nothing more important that I can do right now than to pray with my friends. Come, let's go to the garden. Isn't that amazing on that?
Yeah.
And then we look at our lives and say, wait a minute, do I think I am busier than Jesus? Do I think that I don't need it as much as Jesus needed it? And so we started with the prayer life of Jesus, and there was so much to learn. But we didn't stop there. Then we looked at the historical church and over hundreds of years, looking at the prayer practices, some that had been around for so many years, but I'd never practiced before, and that was transformational. And then also to have the opportunity to interview global leaders and to learn from them. And I could jump into so many of those conversations, but literally for me, just the time to interview Johnny Erickson Tata, was one of the most special moments of the book writing. And this is someone who has a vibrant prayer life and who would say, experiencing Jesus in my pain is far better. It is far better than a life without pain. And to know that she believes that, to know that she says that is true. And so how do you do that? How does Johnny cultivate this vibrant prayer life that has sustained her? So that's the journey that we were on. And for leaders, there was this cautionary tale. Every study was done about leaders that didn't finish well. Every single one of them had long ago lost any sense of a personal prayer life. Every single one. So like this is good for our soul. It is good for our organizations. And it is one of the most important ways to protect ourselves against pride and hubris that derails so many leaders today. So anyway, I could go on, but it has had a transformational impact on our lives, on our leadership, and on the organizations where we serve.
Yeah. I think, Peter, a couple of our last episodes, we highlighted the life of Charles Wesley and C.T. Studd and just some others, and the amount of time that they spent in prayer. It's just staggering. So, and it really impacted all of the organizations that they led too. It launched into global movements. George Mueller, that was the third that I couldn't remember. So when we met with our regional coordinator recently, she mentioned that prayer is a major focus point of Hope International. So how did the research that you guys did, how has it affected the organization?
So that was part of what we wanted to learn is how do we as leaders grow in our prayer lives, but then not keep it to ourselves, and to bring our prayer room into the boardroom and into the organizational culture, and to learn from our global friends that do this. And I've had experiences around the world. My last trip to Rwanda, it was Friday night, and I was asking the staff, what are you going to do tonight? They're like, oh, it's the first Friday of the month, so we're going to have an all-night prayer meeting. Wow. Remember being in the Philippines and being invited to participate in Dawn Watch. And I thought that sounded cool. Let's go look at a sunrise. I thought, no, Dawn Watch means they're going to be in a room with no windows, but while the sun is rising outside, they're going to start their day in prayer, 5:30 a.m. That's what they're going to do. I don't know about your culture, but that is a high bar from some of our global friends, and it is normative. And then fasting, and then retreat, and then all these things that, again, are not new. But I think that we live in a world that tells us the ultimate goal is your own self-sufficiency. Do it on your own. And prayer actually requires a level of dependency. It requires reaching the end of your ability to say, Lord, apart from you, I can do nothing. Not apart from you, I can still do my strategic plan and apart from you, I can do nothing. So teach me to abide in you. Teach me to be deeply connected to the vine. And that changes everything in our life and in our leadership. So we're just trying to, we're not leaders in this. We're just trying to learn from the global church and to implement a couple things that we've learned from them. And it has been a great journey that we've been on. But yeah, we think about what are our daily habits, what are our weekly habits, what are our annual habits, and we think about that organizationally, and we think about that individually. And again, nothing new, but have we thought about creating a simple rule of life for ourselves and for our organizations of how we don't fit prayer into the margins, but we place prayer as some anchors, and then we build our day around that. That simple reordering will change the vibrancy of our prayer life. So that's what we're trying to do.
As you think about those anchors, what is it at Hope that has? What are a couple of the things that have been the anchors that you're building around? And then, let's start there. There's plenty there.
Yeah, and in many ways, I mean, it's not overthinking it. For us, it's here's what we do Monday, here's what we do Tuesday, here's what we do Wednesday, and some days it's prayer within our smaller teams. Some days prayer with the global team, and it's just create a plan. It's like if you believe it matters, put it on your calendar. If you
Mhm.
believe that prayer is important, don't wait until you have nothing else to do before you spend time in prayer. Put those things on your calendar and then relentlessly protect them.
Mm.
Uh, when I travel, I try really hard. It's a 9 a.m. prayer time some days. And when I'm on the West Coast, that comes a little early on that. But you know what I remember? I remember Philippines at 5:30, and I think I'm sleeping in right now on that. So get it on the calendar and then make it a priority and then invite others in to that journey as well. So I don't know. I don't think it has to be more complicated than that. We also love this tool, but when we were working on the book, Ryan created these prayer cards, which are just prayer prompts. Because that's the other challenge is even if we make time for prayer, it's like, what do I do? My mind is so prone to wander. My thoughts can make the squirrels look like they're not very energetic on that. So these prompts help us stay focused and focus on scripture, focus on questions and things to be praying about. And that's been super, super helpful. And then there also is an app that we love, the Abide app, the Echo app, but that's been a great tool as well. So anyway, tools, calendarizing it, prioritizing it, those are pieces that I have found enormously helpful to shrink the gap between what I say and then what I actually do when it comes to my prayer life.
Yeah, there's so many good things, within the book. I mean, you talking through calendarizing it and defending that and what a challenge that can be. But one of the things I love, you're talking about the capacity for us to distract ourselves. I love one of the things, and I think you quote John Piper in this, but you take 5 or 6 different 7 passages, from the Word, and of the prayer list that you have, you pray the scriptures. That so it keeps you engaged. If you're praying Romans 12, if you're praying, Psalm 23, whatever it might be, the passage. And I found that to be incredibly helpful as I pray through family and friends and, just a different rhythm, of that on a day-to-day basis, because I'll still get distracted, but it's maybe, 20% as much, as it would be otherwise. So I found that, tool to be remarkably helpful. And yet, it's the simple things, like you've talked about. It's not some kind of, massively new idea. It's taking those elements and just saying, is this going to be a priority or not? And am I going to do this in community or not, where I'm being encouraged? We had, when we were on the mission field for a number of years, the South Koreans that we were working alongside, they would pray 3 hours a day, and they're praying and they're all talking at the same time. And there's this level of vibrancy and energy, and we go back to our own prayer meetings, oftentimes coming from the States. And it's just like, wow, we have a lot to learn from our brothers and sisters in South Korea. So good to hear you learning those lessons or just talking about the lessons that you've learned, from the global church.
No, that's absolutely true. And for us, that gift of cross-cultural prayer, and that is a gift. And in many ways, that was kind of the fun, right? Is let's just look globally and let's look historically. And you guys know this because you read the book, but there's way too many things in that to practice all of them. And our invitation is just try some things, try some new practices, try some of these new tools. And my guess is some of them, not all of them, but some of them will help you, kind of grow deeper if you desire to grow in your prayer life. So hold what actually helps and let go of the rest. But there is a whole lot more, tools and approaches. And even looking at scripture, do you know how many different verbs there are to describe prayer? I mean, there's so many invitations beyond bow your head and fold your hands. There's a lot more postures and practices when it comes to prayer. So try it, experiment, see which ones help you in your experience and relationship with Christ through prayer.
Well, and even just the beginning of the day, Austin, you referenced the focus that we had on George Mueller for one episode, but him talking about the first thing that he did every day was to get happy in the Lord, to find a way to have his soul happy. in the Lord. And one of the things I love about what you guys reference is getting into the Psalms and picking a Psalm that you're going to do kind of day to day and just allowing that to wash over you. And, I found just personally that's such a way to get happy, in the Lord. If we give ourselves enough time that it's just like, how have I been missing this? Why have I not been doing this? But it's I guess maybe common sense in the prayer life is not common practice, but so good to see you guys giving us so many different ways that we can look and try to implement practice and then go to our brothers and sisters. So what a fantastic resource. As you kind of think about those elements, any other things that just struck you personally, Peter, as being maybe the most impactful among what you share in the book?
Yeah, I mean, just one organizational piece that was so interesting is I think there are some people that would say, well, that would never work in, and then fill in the blank of their context and some reason why it wouldn't work there. The other interesting thing is I think we found stories that are beyond the bounds that even in that type of environment, you might, I think it is possible. I firmly believe it is possible, but there's two stories that didn't make it in the book, and I am so disappointed. Two stories were from Fortune 500, incredible leaders of brands that everyone knows who have created these vibrant prayer cultures in their place of work, like vibrant, incredible. We got to participate in one of them, and the people that we interviewed allowed us to share their story, but every interview requires a legal sign-off, and the legal departments did not allow us to include their stories, which I'm really disappointed. But trust me when I say even in corporate America, it is possible. It requires a little bit more creativity and maybe not officially on company time, but it is so possible. If you believe it matters, it is absolutely possible to gather with others and to pray together. So anyway, I'm disappointed those official stories are not in it, but take my word for it. It is possible to grow in there. A little bit of creativity that flows from a commitment, and my guess is there might be an opportunity, to do more. And maybe if you don't know where to start, I just love the request that the disciple brought to Jesus when they said, "Lord, teach us to pray." And I think that is a great prayer for us today, even as we start this journey. Lord, teach us to pray. And I think God loves to answer that prayer.
Yeah, I think, Peter, as you mentioned that, I think that comes back to my mind often is just this, it's a posturing, Lord, teach us to pray. And I think that invitation is an open-handed invitation, because God will fill our hearts and our minds if we have the desire. And I think that was the thing that struck me so often in the book is, where is my desire? Is my desire my own output, or is my desire just to be with the Lord? And so I think one last question that I have is just, what are oppositions or barriers or hurdles that you've come up against after writing this, as you've explored your own prayer life, as you've explored organizational prayer life, and how have you worked through those?
Oh, I would change the tense of your question. Worked is past tense. Maybe the question is, how am I continuing to try to
Fair.
work out these things? And you know what I love too? There's this one quote from Brennan Manning, but basically the gist of it is, like, no child can bring a bad coloring picture to their parent, right? I mean, just the fact, and no child can do a bad prayer to our gracious God on that. So get the pressure off of doing it perfectly in that. And I think exploring the purpose of prayer, Austin, you just made a massively important point. If we think prayer is how to most expediently get what we want, we're going to be disappointed with prayer. God, you didn't give me what I wanted in my time frame. Am I doing it wrong, or are you doing it wrong? When we started having conversations. One of the people that we interviewed, his name was John Kim, and he talked about this idea of wasting time with God. He's in New York, works in finance. And I just love that idea of, no, the goal is presence. And Ryan Skoog, he has this practice every Sunday. He doesn't ask God for anything on that day in prayer. Spends a lot of time praying, but it's to find the delight of presence and a whole lot of thank you. Thank you, Lord. So I think that's like an interesting idea to explore is what is the purpose of prayer? And outside of getting what you want, is there more in this? And then to, be on the journey. So anyway, I could go on and on and on, but maybe again, one of the practical things that I am currently doing is to create time and space, and then to just practice these tools. I'm rereading the book. Like to actually say, I want to put it into practice in that. And again, just the prayer card, those prompts have been so helpful to me on that. So that's what I am currently doing to still be on this journey. And I'm still praying the prayer. Lord, I am so distracted. Lord, teach me to pray. Teach me to find great delight in your presence.
Well, Peter, again, thanks so much for unpacking not just Lead with Prayer, but Hope International and the work that you do there. It's just such a delight to be able to bring you on the podcast. And if you have any questions about what we've talked through, hopeinternational.org is a place that you can find more resources there. Lead with Prayer. Is it leadwithprayer.com, Peter? Is that where we find the resources from the book?
Correct. Yeah. Leadwithprayer.com. And we put as much as the publisher would allow us for free there in terms of the tools to share. So lots of materials there. Leadwithprayer.com.
Super. Well, thanks again. And again, if you have any questions, reach out to us. We'd love to have further conversations with you.
If you found this episode valuable, share it with a friend and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform so that you don't miss the next episode.
This content was provided by Second Half Stewardship. We are in Knoxville, Tennessee, and you can visit our website at www.secondhalfstewardship.com. The information in this recording is intended for general educational and informational purposes only and should not be construed as investment advisory, financial planning, legal, tax, or other professional advice based on your specific situation. Please consult your professional advisor before taking any action based on its contents.